Conversation to be had here at the World Economic Forum's annual summit at Davos is the future of work, and joining us today is Philip Jennings. Thanks very much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. So what does it look like? I mean, we're talking about AI, we're talking about disruptive technologies, 3D and Industry 4.0. What does it mean in terms of job creation, in terms of what's going to become redundant over the next few years in terms of work?
If we're going to create the shared future that the World Economic Forum is talking about, then we're going to have to deal with a very new look future of work. And what we have tried to do as the labour movement here is to put this at the centre of attention in terms of what does this mean for humanity and what does it mean for the 3.2 billion people in the world's workplace. The initial reaction to the technological change and the research that was done was startling. And the statistics that we saw were that more than half the jobs would be replaced by the technology. And there's been a kind of a reflection that perhaps that's not going to materialize, but what will materialize is the transformation in the tasks that people undertake and how they're going to go about their working lives in the future. So this transformation is coming. It should not be a runaway train. We need, as nations, to be prepared for the changes which are coming. And that's why we say the human should be at the center of this, that we should invest in people, because what we do see is a chronic underinvestment in people. And our assessment is the world is not prepared for the scale and the nature of the change which is unfolding before our eyes.
So if it's not prepared today, what is it going to take for it to gear up to embrace the change and to manage the disruption, specifically from what governments need to do in terms of being able to create the right skilled workforce, in terms of investing in education? I mean, what is the priority for governments, especially in emerging markets?
I think in the emerging markets, which is where we're going to see the fastest growth in the labour force, when we look at India, for example, and when we look to the African continent, this is where the job growth will be. In many other parts of the world, we're going to have another kind of demographic evolution taking place. In Africa, just take the issue of Africa. Within the next 50 years, the workforce is going to grow from 600 million to 2 billion. And at this moment in time, only a small fraction of people have what we would consider a decent job. The same in India. So how do you get prepared for this? First of all, you will have to increase your spend in education. You're going to have to increase your spend in public education and to provide people with the skills so that they will have something to offer on the labour market, and they're going to need to develop those skills going forward. We have a dreadful underinvestment in people. If you look at the government spend in the OECD, the average is less than 2%. In the United States of America, for example, they're spending 0.001% of their wealth on what we call active labour market policies. In our arguments with the G20, and we've met all the labour ministers and the presidents there, the line is, leave no one behind. Therefore, the nature of the challenge which we see is not going to be about wealth creation. We know that there's wealth. We know that if it's not channeled correctly, this will make the rich richer and the poor even more impoverished. Therefore, active labour market policies and preparing people for the change, and business accepting its responsibility towards its people. And that is the sense that you can't forever chase rates of return of 14, 15, 16%, because to get there you're going to have to cut corners. We're going to need a new generation investing in people, investing in their capital, investing in their skills, and ensuring that they can have a better quality of life than they enjoy at the moment.
But, you know, the challenge that it poses for emerging markets that have operated fundamentally on the labour arbitrage advantage, you know, so how does the landscape change then if we start to see companies, you know, not willing to make the changes that you're just talking about?
India's got to develop its internal market. You could be the biggest economic market. I know Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister, was speaking about we are going to be in the top 3 or 4 in the next 20 years. I look at what happened in China. When I went to China, first of all, 30 years back, it was about, can we feed our population? It was called Iron Rice Bowl. Then it was the export-led model. Now what are they doing? They're developing their internal market. How do you develop your internal market? You make sure that workers are treated with dignity. You make sure that the money that goes into their pocket enables them to live and to have a decent wage. India has to develop this vast potential, its internal market. You do that by raising living standards. And then that foreign direct investment that Mr. Modi spoke so passionately about. We need you to come and invest. Yeah. They will invest if they can see that the people in India can buy the goods and that they can spend. And therefore, I'd like Modi to have another think about how he engages with the labour movement in India. And I know he has a bonfire of all these rules and regulations. He requires a new kind of dialogue with the labour movement. And if you're going to develop that internal market, you do it in negotiations with the trade union movement to try and raise the salary mass in the wealth produced. And that will mean that that growing middle class that you have will grow quicker. The foreign direct investment will come and you will have a lively internal market. That's the future for India.
Okay, let me ask you about the future of employment, at least in the foreseeable future. We've seen unemployment rates drop quite significantly, even in developed markets like America. What's the outlook for 2018?
The outlook for 2018 is for it to be stable at a high level. When we look at the world's labour force, we have something like 193 million people unemployed, according to the international definition. This will increase during the course of this year by another 3 million. We have a situation where we have something of a recovery as a result of the measures taken since the financial crisis ripped. But we're not seeing a really an optimistic picture as to where employment will grow. The issue that we have, the world's workforce is made up of 3.2 billion people, and half of them are in the informal sector, in the sense that they have no proper contract, they have no proper contractual arrangement, and we see this as a lag. We see this as a lag on economic development. Before us is this technological revolution. That means the world of work that we see today is going to be transformed. There will be substitution of labour. There will be substitution of the tasks which people undertake. And what we as a civilization have to do is to make sure that the 1 billion people also that are impacted by this change have the ability to face the change and to work with the change. Otherwise, unemployment will skyrocket. And the result of that is anger, insecurity, precarity, sinking markets, a loss of trust in political institutions and in political leadership, and again a sense that this world is not working for us. Therefore, the business community also has a responsibility here. The shareholder value model which they have is so dominated by short-term thinking. They have to think beyond the next quarter. They have to see the social purpose of business. Larry Fink, one of the big financiers here at BlackRock, you know, he's got 6.3 trillion. He said, I'm only going to invest in companies who have a social purpose. That's a long way from Milton Friedman. That's a long way from the idea that the business of business is business, which hopefully means a more caring and a more responsible approach to the workforce. So things are in the balance. They are precarious. If we dip into another financial crisis, jobs will be impacted severely. We have this kind of shadow of the digital revolution hanging over us, and if we don't get it right, unemployment will rocket.
Well, there is no space or time for complacency. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC India. Philip Jennings, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Well, with that, it is time for us to toss it back to you here from Davos. For now, thanks for watching.